Hey, we are back here with another episode here of the new format of the Big Break podcast. We got a good show here for you guys today. So let's just get right into it. Ethan, love the tribe. Love the
Long
tribe
live the
here.
chief.
Long live the chief.
Long, long live the chief.
I don't know if you guys heard, but there is a possibility of the Indians coming back to Cleveland, and being changed from the Guardians, as well as the Redskins making a return back to Washington to replace the Commander. So we'll keep an eye out on those developing stories here. I mean, it's been a more recent thing with the Native American community saying, "Hey, why did you guys take these things that honored our people away?" So I don't know. I think it could end up being a good thing. I mean, I personally miss the tribe. I don't know about you guys, but I miss that. And the Redskins was always like just a, I mean, their helmet was literally the chief of that tribe, so. But let's dive into the show here. You guys doing okay on this Saturday morning here?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. Excited.
Yeah.
Selection Sundays tomorrow.
Yeah. Speaking of Selection Sunday, Ethan, when we were in high school, Drew introduced us to this new sickness that comes around every time of the year. And there's no cure until
Little,
April. No cure until April. It's called Tourney fever.
little
Uh,
congestion, little cough, little
Cough.
sniffle.
Got a little temperature brewing.
It's an epidemic.
Oh,
It's
it's a
coming.
pandemic at this point. Every March it happens. Um, I can't wait for this year's tournament. It looks like it's about to be a good one. Just there are talks again of now expanding the tournament to like 80 teams. I know we talked about that last week. I think we're all in a consensus that it's not a good thing to expand this tournament, right?
Right.
No,
No
no,
need.
no
Absolutely.
expansion.
Absolutely. Drew, why don't you kick us off on your Tourney Fever preview here of the
All
madness of
right.
March?
Well, it sure has been fun already. Conference tournaments have been pretty electric. A lot of one seeds going down. A lot of, uh, uh, like I guess G5 conference regular season champions that end up losing the conference title, so they don't even get to dance. But as far as the Big Ten title or Big Ten tournament has been very fun. We got the semifinals today. I'm really looking forward to the Big 12 final today. Iowa State, Houston should be amazing. I think it's kind of a preview of like a Final Four matchup. I think these are two of the best teams in the country. The Big East final tonight, Marquette, UConn. Obviously, UConn's been amazing all season. Uh, Love the rivalry in the ACC final, NC State, North Carolina. That should be. Hopefully, there's some blood drawn in that one. I'd like to see some fists fly. I'm stoked about tomorrow. I'm ready to get these brackets underway.
Absolutely, Corey.
I mean, my favorite part is the upset, right? So I look for double digit seeds to potentially beat some high seeds. I think this year is kind of one of the first that I remember that really doesn't have like one clear cut team that's better than everybody else. There's like four or five teams that are better than everybody else, but in March it doesn't matter. I think hopefully maybe we'll see Purdue actually get out of the first couple of days. Hopefully. Um, Wisconsin in the Big Ten is playing really good right now. I didn't think they had even had a shot, but now all of a sudden they're playing really well. Um, I think Ohio State is really dangerous if they get in, just because they're playing very good basketball right now. Um,
Oh, they're
Illinois is
playing
really good.
great. They're
Illinois
playing
is
great
really good.
basketball.
I think North Carolina potentially is the best team in the country. Um, I mean, and a team nobody's looking for, Kansas. If Kansas is fully healthy with Hunter Dickinson and all those young guards, that they could be good. It's all about guard play. In the NCAA tournament, it's all about guard play.
That is true.
So
That is actually a big always a big topic going into the tournament season is how well are your guards playing. I was talking to my wife and I said guard play, like Corey just said, guard play is how you advance in the tournament. If you don't have a good guard play, you're probably not going to win the national championship. And I was like, perfect example was the 2010 Duke Blue Devils. You had John Shire, Kyle Singler, Nolan Smith. Those just three great guards that just that just played. They didn't turn the ball over. They were consistent in their scoring abilities and everything like that. Ethan, who
Yeah.
who are your four number one seeds going into this? So if the brackets were released today, not tomorrow, with selection Saturday, who would your four teams be as your number one overalls?
I would have my number one overall seed is UConn. I think they're in contention for far and away the best team in the country. Right now, North Carolina is playing out of their minds. I think they're also one of the best four teams in the country. Houston, the Big 12 is ridiculously strong this year. And then Purdue. I think if Purdue advances out of the Big Ten tournament as the champion, you have to give them the one seed and possibly the one overall. But I still would like to see UConn as the one overall. So I would say UConn, UNC, Houston, and Purdue at this point in time.
Absolutely. Guys, who's your odds on favorite right now? Like when you're filling out your brackets here, obviously depending on where teams are in their regions, what their matchups are. Who was your early Final Four here?
Oh man, early Final Four. It's hard to bet against those four teams depending how they fall. I know they just updated the bracketology. Joe Lenardi did about an hour ago now. And if I were to do a quick study of the bracket, I would have Iowa State, UNC, UConn, and Houston.
Like it, Drew?
Um, yeah, I think Ethan just nailed it. Actually, I was gonna mention Houston, dude. I watched Houston just destroy Texas Tech yesterday. That team is amazing, and they're guard led. They got great guards. So Houston, I love Iowa State, so I'm gonna say Iowa State. I think UConn is just too damn good. And then I don't feel great about it, but I'm gonna pick Purdue because the guards, Lawyer and Braden Smith have really elevated their game this season, so I think they can actually get it done.
Corey, real quick.
I didn't even know. Oh, good.
I think Purdue is going to be there. I think they've had so many heartbreak and letdowns. They're just that's what happened to Virginia. They lost, came back the next year and won it all. So like it kind of drives them. I think Purdue is there. I really think Kansas is there. If they are fully healthy, they can beat anybody. I like Houston, depending on their bracket, and I would probably go with North Carolina.
I'm in consistence with all three of you guys. So, sticking with basketball here, guys. 5 minutes on the clock for your Big Ten. We have Big Ten championship preview in the notes, but it is the semifinals today. So let's just talk about both semifinals and who you guys see going to the championship game, and then ultimately winning the Big Ten championship tomorrow. 5 minutes on the clock. Start now. We'll start with Corey. So you got Purdue versus Wisconsin, and then Illinois versus Nebraska, I believe. Right?
I think Illinois will blow out Nebraska, more than likely. So I would go with Illinois. Wisconsin's playing unbelievable, but I think Purdue's just too good. I think Purdue's on a mission, so I would go with Purdue and Illinois, probably with Purdue winning it. Again, I haven't watched a whole lot of Purdue. But when researching stats, Edey is like above and beyond better than everybody else in the conference. So I mean, it helps when you're 7'5" or whatever he is, but he's
a monster.
Better.
I'll tell you that.
He's just better than everybody else. And the refs, you like touch him, they call a foul. So I mean, So really, I would just go with Purdue, and if their guards play well, that they're better than anybody else in the country.
I would typically agree with that. Yeah, Zach Edey, he's just a you talk about a they always say the presence in the paint. You want to talk about a presence? It's Zach Edey. Like that guy, he's
Hmm.
just massive. Um, so I would agree with Corey in those on those points there. For those both semifinal games, Corey. Before we move on, um, so I take it you're taking Purdue, Illinois into the championship. Who's your champion out of those two?
Purdue.
Purdue. All right. We'll kick it over here to Ethan here to get his semifinal and championship game.
I definitely think Purdue goes over Wisconsin. Edie's getting 11 free throw attempts a game, which is obscene to me. The next closest is a 8 something in the Big Ten for Terrence Shannon Jr. So that is just monumental difference in the end.
I mean,
Purdue's getting
Shannon
all these
what
chances
had
at the line.
Shannon what last night against Ohio State had like 10 free throws alone in the last 5 minutes of the game. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think Purdue walks Wisconsin. Right now, ESPN has a spread at 5.5. I think Purdue covers that with ease. The 3:30 game, Nebraska Illinois, I think is going to be a lot better. Hoiberg's boys are going to come to play, and I really think whoever wins this game can beat Purdue tomorrow. But I'm going to side with Illinois. Think their guard plays a little bit better than Nebraska's taller guys. So I'm going to take Purdue, Illinois, and I think I'm going to take the two best players in the Big Ten against each other. I'm going to take Illinois in the upset tomorrow night.
I like it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when Purdue traveled to Champaign earlier in the year in the regular season, didn't they? Wasn't Illinois down a couple guys?
Yeah, I believe
I,
so.
I
They
think
went
I
to
think like
them.
Shannon may have been out that game for some reason. So like
It
this time,
was, yeah, he was still suspended. It was
yeah,
in the January 5th game.
yep. So I think that's going to be a game changer for Illinois if they do end up beating Nebraska. Drew, we'll go to you now for your semifinal and championship game preview.
Yeah. So I think I think Purdue just kind of beats the hell out of Wisconsin. Um, I don't think Wisconsin's been had a nice little run here to end the season, but I don't think they have anyone to match up against Edie. So I'll take Purdue to win and cover that game. And then Illinois has just been so hot recently. I can't pick against them. I do think Hoiberg will have the boys going. Um, so I do think it's kind of close, but I will take Illinois. And then I'm with Ethan. I think Illinois over Purdue in the final. To me, Purdue hasn't choked yet this year, and Matt Painter is an excellent choke artist. So I think it's time for Purdue to choke, and I'd rather have them choke now than in the big dance.
Yeah, I would typically agree. I mean, Matt Painter, he's just not a good. He's a great coach, to get you to this point in the season when your conference championship. But it seems like when he gets into like the big dance, he just for some reason his team's just not ready to play then.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to agree though. With Ethan and Drew here, I do see if anybody in the Big Ten is going to upset Purdue for this Big Ten championship, it's going to be Illinois with a fully healthy team. I do think Illinois. So I got Illinois Purdue. To me, it's a coin flip at this point. Whoever is basically having the better shooting day tomorrow is going to be the one who wins the game. Um, let's get go here. I will put a clock on this one because it's pretty much a straightforward thing. Um, we got Big Ten basketball end of the year awards to hand out. So I'm going to start here with Ethan on that front. Go ahead here with your Big Ten basketball end of year awards.
Okay. Started out player of the year. It's pretty easy to say Zach Edey by default. I tossed around him and Terrence Shannon Jr. a lot and settled on Edey just because it's hard to argue against it and to create a strong argument against it's almost impossible. So Edey with a mention to Shannon. Defensive player of the year, I'm going Ace Baldwin Jr. out of Penn State, 2.7 steals a game. Just straight baller at the guard. My coach of the year, I'm going Fred Hoiberg at Nebraska. I think he's done amazing things with the guys this year. 23 wins, I believe. Just looking really good, conference semis. And then my first team, all Big Ten. I've got Terrence Shannon Jr. I've got Boo Buie, Jameer Young out of Maryland, Zach Edey, and then Khalil Ware out of IU.
I like it. I like it. Drew, go ahead here with your interviewer awards.
Yeah, not many different dudes to award here. Obviously, Zach Edey, Player of the Year. Maybe Wooden Player of the Year, National Player of the Year. Led the league in efficiency, led the league in win shares.
Everything.
I was going to say he pretty much led the league in
Let's just say
yeah.
everything, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so Defensive Player of the Year, I don't want to give it to Edey, so I'm going to give it to Khalil Ware out of Indiana. He was right here, 9.9, 10 rebounds a game, 2 blocks a game, 16 points a game. So then first team, all Big Ten. I've got Zach Edey, Terrence Shannon had a great year. Boo Buie deserves a lot of love. Julian, or was it Julian Young? Jameer Young, yes. He had an awesome year. He's a really good dude. It sucks that he was on such a shitty Maryland team. Is that 4 or 5?
It's 4, I think.
4 by my count.
Okay. Yeah, and then I think I'd throw Khalil Ware in there as well.
I like it. Corey, we'll shoot now to you.
Man, I mean, Player of the Year is Zach Edey. I think it'll probably be unanimous. I mean, Shannon had a good year. I also think Jameer Young probably deserves to be talked about in that conversation. Again, Maryland is not at the level of what Purdue is, and he still put up unbelievable numbers. Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, looking at stats, I probably Zach Edey just because, but I mean, if I had to go someone off, I may go like Clifford Amora Yui, I think his name is. Mm-hmm. Dude averaged basically 3 blocks a game for Rutgers. So he potentially is deserving as well. And I mean, I think my all Big Ten team is kind of all the same. Edey, Shannon Jr., Jameer Young, Boo Buie. And then I think you potentially have there's probably like 3 or 4 guys for that 5th spot.
Absolutely. Anytime I hear Boo Buie's name, I just think of golf tournaments after a drive. Baba Booey!
But also things to keep in mind. The Braden Smith at Purdue's only a sophomore this year. They're picking up another 7-footer. Rutgers brings in 2 of the best recruits in the nation going into next year, Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. Just Purdue's not going away. Rutgers is going to get better. I think you see some transfers in these mid-tier schools.
Absolutely. I like that. I like all your guys' picks here.
I just want, Nick, I want to shout out your boy Bruce Thornton at Ohio State. That dude's a dog. I watched him past 2 games, and he's been awesome.
Yeah, he's
fun to watch.
Great last night.
Yeah. Last night's game he was playing great last night. Another guy to watch out for when you're watching Ohio State basketball. Gotta shut this guy out is Battle.
Only that a sophomore,
dude,
too.
Yeah, Battle he's phenomenal. The guy just plays very solid basketball, makes very smart decisions. You can almost call his name out almost on both ends of the floor, almost every possession. So he's going to be a key for Ohio State to continue to improve. which I think they will, because this leads us into our next topic. The coaching, the new coaches, coaches have been fired. Within Big Ten football and basketball season, we've seen a coaching carousel happen here within the Big Ten. So let's get to it. I mean, we've seen Chip Kelly leave UCLA to come to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Just recently this week, we saw Ohio State's running back coach Tony Alford leave for the rival Michigan, and with the absence of now Mike Hart not coming back, obviously Jim Harbaugh left to go to the NFL to join the Chargers. Sharon Moore's now the head honcho, CEO now of Michigan football. Chris Holtman got let go after Gene Smith said, "Oh, we'll make a decision at the end of the year with you." So he's out of Columbus now, and it just got reported this past week that Chris Holtman has now signed a 6-year deal for some amount of money. I forget what the money aspect was, but it was a 6-year deal to be the new head coach at DePaul University. Yeah, I mean, it's just been a wild ride with coaches here in the Big Ten. So the 5 minutes going to start now. We're going to start with Drew, then we're going to go to Corey, and then Ethan here for that. So just to give you guys a little thing. So what's the 5 minutes starts now here for you, Drew?
All right. Well, starting with basketball, I think Ohio State has found their dude. Let's just elevate Diebler. Michigan basketball is pretty interesting. I wonder who they're going to target. I'm glad Jawan's gone. That was a terrible season.
You mean Jalost?
Yeah, he lost. Jumping into football, I think obviously the biggest one is Chip Kelly leaving UCLA to go to Ohio State. I think that's phenomenal pickup for Ohio State and a phenomenal job for Chip Kelly, who no longer has to pretend that he cares about recruiting and has to go around and kiss a bunch of people's asses and shit. So good for Chip Kelly. Now he just has to play football.
I mean, he's still going to have to recruit, but it's not going to be to the point of a head coach.
He don't want to.
He's going to have to. He's going to have to be out on the recruiting trail, but I think what his.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if he will.
He may not, and that may be a deal that him and Ryan worked out, saying like, "Hey, I'll take care of the recruiting. You just worry about football."
I would say the reason he left the head coaching position was because of all the bullshit that it's become, and it's not really about football.
Yep.
Other notable coordinators, UCLA hiring Eric Bieniemy. That's pretty interesting. I don't know how well he's going to do in college. And
man, he's the guy I wanted Ohio State to get.
Yeah, I'd rather have Chip. I think Bieniemy is kind of head coach in waiting at UCLA because I also don't think Deshaun Foster's a serious long-term head coach. I think Penn State probably got the best coordinators. Tom Allen as DC is just going to be just as good as Manny Diaz, so not much drop off there. But Andy Kotelnicki, who was the OC at Kansas last year, he's now the OC at Penn State. That's huge, dude. That's phenomenal. The Nittany Lions were 116th last year in 25-plus yard plays, so like big plays, 116th. Kotelnicki at Kansas was ranked 23rd on a primarily run-heavy offense. So I think Penn State's offense is going to make a big jump this year.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Core.
It's been a wild couple months. Basketball-wise, I think you're right. Ohio State probably should promote Diebler. I don't know if they will or not. It feels like they might look outside the box, but they shouldn't. Michigan rumblings, just from what I've heard from internal people, they want to reach out to Bayline to see if he wants to come back, maybe as like a temporary option for a couple years. Also heard like big name wise, I've heard Shaka Smart's name thrown around. That would be interesting. So we'll see if that. I don't know that he leaves, but um, football wise, I think Chip Kelly's a great option. I mean, I really like the Bill O'Brien signing for Ohio State, and then obviously he left to go to Boston College.
For
I agree,
personal
Chip Kelly.
reasons. He left for personal
A
reasons.
100%. Well, I mean, there's a big difference between head coach and offensive coordinator too.
Right.
But I also think Chip Kelly's a great option. Obviously, he was the one who got Ryan Day started anyway, so I think it's kind of like a full circle moment. On top of having the recruiting things, um, Michigan should be just fine. I Sharon Moore will take over and be just fine. I don't have any doubt about that. To me, I think the biggest difference between him and Harbaugh is Sharon Moore seems like he kind of wants to kiss ass to potentially make recruiting better, and do some more. But other than that, I mean, coordinator wise, I like what Penn State did. I just still don't trust James Franklin, so that should be fun. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think basketball is fine, and I think the Big Ten's in a good spot in football with all the new head coaches.
Absolutely. Ethan, we'll kick it to you. Don't worry about the timer.
Definitely, they touch base on a lot of stuff. Deshaun Foster, Eric Bieniemy in UCLA. I really like Bieniemy as OC in general. I think he's a great hire for whoever gets him. He made Sam Howell look like a top 7 quarterback in the NFL last year. He turned that offense all the way around in Washington. I think he should have stayed there and worked with what they had coming in. Michigan State getting Jonathan Smith and the Oregon State offensive defensive staff. Big things to come there. Sharon Moore getting promoted was the right move. Bringing in Wink Martindale at DC was absolutely lateral from what they had. I don't think it gets much better. I already loved what Jesse was doing before he got moved to the NFL with Harbaugh. Michigan's in good hands going forward. Indiana getting Kurt Signetti and James Madison's offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan. Um, I know it's not the same kind of football, but if you translate what Shanahan brought to JMU last year at James Madison, 418.9 yards a game in total offense would have led the Big Ten by over 10 yards. So hopefully some of that magic rolls forward from what Indiana rolled last year. Jed Fish, love the signing at Washington. And Tim Lester, OC Iowa, nothing but big things to grow on there. It's hard to grow from zero, or hard not to grow from zero offense. So translating to basketball, Jake Diebler, find the dotted line, call it good. Even if you try to find someone future, and Michigan, I don't know, hopefully they find someone good. Even if they do reach out to Shaka, the bright lights at Texas were too bright for him. Hopefully he's past that. I think he's kind of settled in up at Marquette. I hope he doesn't leave, but I'm a big Shaka guy, have been since he rose to national prominence at VCU back in the day. I don't have much else there. Penn State looks great. James Franklin's still the Matt Painter of football. So
Yeah. That's the thing is how long will Penn State put up with James Franklin in my opinion. I think that's a a big question here within their football program. For
I
Michigan,
agree, but also James Franklin is really good. He's not elite. He's great. I don't think there's much higher to go for him. So you'd have to find the diamond in the rough to go up from James Franklin, unfortunately.
you're not wrong there. I just think
Also, 11-2 gets you in the playoff.
yeah, true. And that's another thing is how many hot seats are you going to start seeing now? Because the playoff is expanding to 12 this year. It's now been reported in 2026 we're moving to a 14 team. I think all five or they said all five power conferences, but like you have the two POC, so that's not a power conference anymore. So like we'll just say the four major conferences, the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and Big 12, and Notre Dame have all signed off on a 14-team playoff. So I think that is definitely coming in 2026. Unfortunately, I think I think for football, expanding it to that many teams is absolutely flippin' ridiculous. Um, and I'm just going to go back to this point to not this past season, the 2023, but 2022 season was you had the majority of the country and fans of college football sit here and tell you that an 11-1 Ohio State team did not deserve to be in the top 4 to play for the national title. Now, in my opinion, if they don't deserve to be 11-1 to be in the top 4 to play for a national title, then what the hell does a 9-3 or a 10-2 team deserve to be playing for a national title? You know what I mean?
You're not
Like,
always what you're not
it,
always what your record says you are.
and again, like
Mm-hmm.
Corey said, the Rudy Gobert, the Johnny Manziel, it's all about the money.
But if we're going back on that, I don't believe that there's been 4 teams worthy of a national title since we switched from the BCS.
I wouldn't disagree. I mean, the biggest case though that you have,
This past year, the BCS would have been terrible for this past year.
yes, when you had undefeated Michigan, undefeated,
You had three
three
undefeated teams and a one-loss SEC champion.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Which this year kind of reminds me of that year Auburn split. I think it was 2004, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Auburn split the title with USC that year because USC was undefeated, Oklahoma was undefeated, and so was Auburn. And Auburn got snubbed out of the national title game because of the computer rankings and all that. Um, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens, um, going forward here with college football and the new playoff format. Guys, we do have this is a first year. The new 4 teams in the Big Ten are going to be joining Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. Drew gave us this topic here, and I think it's a very good one. Is these new teams coming in, who are their historic comparisons to the Big Ten? Because, we know their history within the Pac-12. We know the Big Ten teams like historic, programs. Who do you think these 4 teams coming in are their counterparts in the Big Ten, or the Big Ten counterparts to these 4 teams coming in? We'll start with Corey on that.
Okay, so USC is, I think, equivalent to like a Michigan, Ohio State equivalent. Oregon to me is its own tier. They're on the same level as Michigan and Ohio State, but they're not like any other team. And the reason I say that is because they have Nike behind them. Nike will literally pay for them to do whatever they want. Their jerseys come into the Big Ten and are instantly the best, only because they have 15 options
Right.
to wear.
Right.
Helmet wise, they change every game. So, like, it's one of those things where they're just on a different level. They're recruiting because of what they have and everything in their facilities is why they're in a different tier. There's YouTube videos of their facility and it's insane. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you go to Ohio State and Michigan, it's insane, but it's not even close to what Oregon has. UCLA to me is a middle of the road. To me is like a Michigan State, a good once every 4 or 5 years, and then is kind of just like 8-4, 9-3, kind of middle of the road team that has good years. They, I do think they're good. I mean, you're in California, they're going to recruit just fine in California. And then you have, they'll beat, occasionally in a rivalry game, win a game that they shouldn't. Washington, maybe like now, see, it's tough because Washington is completely different than what I would have said 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So like Washington with Jed Fish, the way that is, considering I've seen him when he was at Michigan, and then move all the way up to where he is, to me, they're like a Penn State. They are going to recruit crazily because of what DeBoer did. And Jed Fish got people to go to Arizona. He's going to get people to go to Washington. It's just the name of the game. So that's where I would put their comparison. I mean, a couple years ago, I would have said like Rutgers. History, but not great. But now I think they've kind of been elevated.
Yep. Drew, I'm gonna kick it to you with your topic because this was your topic. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my example to you guys was USC is Michigan. I think that's the easiest one. I got a little quote. I got quotes here for each of them. Just a couple old timers riding the roller coaster of success. Obviously, they're blue bloods. They're not every year. Every year's not successful, but every other, you know. So I think that's easy. I think UCLA is also easy. I got UCLA is Michigan State. Little brother in football, big brother in basketball. Just like USC is and Michigan are little brother in basketball, big brother in football. Um, so then Oregon was tough. I I did my best to compare everyone to someone. So I have Oregon compared to Wisconsin. I think, and my quote here is just because they haven't doesn't mean they can't. These are both very good programs, very good football programs who have had a lot of success. They're not known for winning national titles or nothing. Both programs had a lot of success in like the 1950s, and then again in the 1980s, and then we'll probably see them have a lot of success this decade. And then I have Washington compared to Iowa. Success comes in spurts. So Iowa is consistently good, but they're never going to blow you out of the water with how good they are. Washington also it's a roller coaster. There's been a lot of bad years, but then there's been a lot of good years. They have a national title in 1991. So that's where I have them.
I like it. Ethan, go ahead. Don't worry about the timer.
This took me a minute. I couldn't quite figure out which direction to go. So naturally, I went the numbers route because that's my claim to fame. Um, very first one's Washington, and it's a little skewed, but I did my best on this one because it just kind of threw me all over the place. I got tied up switching teams and names and stuff around for about an hour this morning thinking about it. Washington, I compared to Minnesota. Both have 18 conference titles in their history. Minnesota claims 7 natties, UOW 2. They both have Washington has 784 wins in their history, and Minnesota has 733. Very close statistically on the football side. I didn't even go the basketball route. I didn't, for some reason, I just went hard on football and stuck with it. SC and Michigan, that's a lock. They're basically the same person, just in different clothing. Oregon, controversially, but in football, we're going historically. I compared to Purdue. Both have
Interesting.
Yeah, Oregon has no natties. Neither does Purdue. 13 conference titles to 8 for Oregon, and win percentage is in the 50s. 57 for Oregon and about 52 for Purdue historically. Both are right around the 700 win mark total. And then the one that I saw drawing comparisons to multiple teams, but almost exactly matched up, UCLA to Wisconsin. Both have one national title. UCLA has 17 conference titles to Wisconsin's 14. They both have exactly a 58.5 win percentage over the history of football. But Wisconsin has 100 more wins in their history. So that's just how I went down the line.
I like it. If I had to do comparisons, I'm gonna differ on 2 teams here with you guys. The other two, like UCLA and Washington, I agree with you guys, but all around the board with your comparisons, it could go with either of those teams that you guys mentioned for both of those schools. However, though, I kind of differ with USC and Oregon. I think more or less, like when you look at the history of what the Pac-12 was, and USC's tenure there, the only comparison that I could think in my mind, historically speaking, was Ohio State. They were, throughout the decades, USC has always been, just like Ohio State has always been in the national title picture. They're always a team preseason that and at least in our lifetime, guys, has always been a team that's been in that talk, like this could be their year, right? To win the national title. So that's what I would compare historically USC to coming into the Big Ten. And our historic programs would be Ohio State. And then I'd compare Oregon to Michigan. They're the team who, like Drew always said, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. And I think Oregon and outside of Michigan last year, they both were struggling to get over that hump, right? They're always struggling to get over that hump of they've made the playoffs, they've been there, they've made national title games, but they haven't, they didn't make that jump to win those. They couldn't get over that barrier of winning that national title. We saw Michigan do that last year. They finally broke through that glass ceiling, if you will, and won that title, right? So I think that's a very fair comparison for those two teams. Of when you look at it, USC has the same history that Ohio State does throughout the decades. Oregon, similar to Michigan, just always there, but never could get over the hump. But Michigan did last year. Can Oregon, do that this year, right? So I think those are just my comparisons there. Um, Ethan, I'm going to kick this to you to start off this segment. This is a numbers game segment. This is our gambling segment here. Sports, gambling. Obviously, I want to put a disclaimer here, a big disclaimer of do not gamble unless you have the money to. Only bet what you feel comfortable losing. We are not insiders. We do not have any more information than the average person does. These are just our suggestions, of teams that we would place our money on. So please don't take these as, a for surefire thing. The Big Break podcast said this, they led me wrong, I'm going to sue them. Nope, not happening. We are just, normal guys. This is what we think. These are our opinions. So again, gamble at your own discretion. Choose the teams who your gut tells you to go with. So I'm going to start the clock here now for Ethan on this segment. Go ahead and hit your lead us off here on this, and then we'll go from Ethan to Corey to Drew.
Yeah, no problem. Starting off,
And again, sorry again for our viewers. This is gambling segment for tournament odds for basketball, men's basketball.
Yep. Starting off right now, favorites to win the whole thing are Connecticut at plus 450. You can get that on most of the major websites. My source right now is covers.com. They cover and compare spreads across FanDuel, DraftKings, PointsBet, and BetMGM. You can use whatever source you prefer. UConn at 450, Houston right behind them at plus 500 odds. Purdue not too distant at plus 750. And then you have this immense drop off. And like Corey had talked about earlier in the show, where the parity really kicks in. The drop off falls all the way out to plus 1,300 for North Carolina and then plus 1,600 for Tennessee and Arizona. The SEC completely cannibalized themselves in their tournament. I don't know if there's a superior SEC team this year, much like the Big Ten did last year. But if you're looking to bet for the championship, I would definitely look to use that elsewhere, because I don't think there's a surefire number one pick anywhere across the board, regardless of what odds that I've seen. Another one that intrigues me today is UConn -9 and currently -9.5 on Marquette. Looking at the boards, it looks like Marquette is 61%, getting them plus 9.5. So a lot of the money going on Marquette to cover. Not sure how I feel about that. And then if you look over into the Big Ten, Purdue is currently fetching 62% of the money at minus 5.5, and Nebraska and Illinois are very close at the line of 4.5. I don't know that I would touch this game at all. I think that has all the makings of a disaster. It's just going to be a great game, and I don't think you're going to be able to place any money on it. But I would hammer Purdue at minus 5.5. Absolutely.
Core.
So for me, I just kind of looked at the national champions. Obviously, like you said, there's those favorites. But like if I'm just looking at like a best bet, like we all know that Iowa State is really good. They're plus 2,500 right now to win it all. That's pretty solid. But as I go down the list, again, I love Kansas. When they are fully healthy, they are better than most teams. They're plus 3,000. That's, that's easy. And then like I just kind of go down the list, and then you think of like teams that have had success in the tournament, have a good head coach, things like that. You're looking at Kentucky at plus 3,500. Gonzaga is plus 7,500. That's wild. They had a down year, but they could still win it all. So Gonzaga at plus 7,500. And then if I go down just a little bit further, I potentially Nebraska is plus 13,000. And the team I would really look out for to me is St. John's. St. John's is, everyone talks about them. They have a lot of talent. They have a really older head coach, but he knows how to win in March. And they're plus 15,000. So that could just be like a little sprinkle. But I mean, that's, it's March. Anything can happen. You get, 12 seeds going to the Final Four, things like that. So it's really just open. It's mainly open, but I would bet for the underdogs.
Absolutely. Drew.
Yeah, when I'm betting, I need some stupid odds before I throw money down. So, like, I'm gonna start with like Clemson at plus 10,000. I think Clemson's sneaky good. They're a senior-led team. I'm also pretty high on BYU. I think Kentucky could possibly make a run. I don't want them to, but I think that they could probably pull off a couple wins. I wouldn't put any money on them. I agree with Corey. Kansas at plus 3,000 is just too good. It's just easy value right there. Illinois at the same at plus 3,000. They've been hot. If they can stay hot, I think maybe they have an outside chance. I think North Carolina at plus 1,500 is pretty nuts. I think that's a pretty easy one.
I would have to agree there.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't touch any of these plus 450, plus 600. It's not worth it for me.
Yeah.
Who gives? If I'm not multiplying my money by a lot, I don't care. I don't play. And then lastly, I'm a big Mountain West fan, so Nevada plus 12, Utah State plus 12,000. Well, I think one of these Mountain West teams is going to make a run.
I was just scrolling down through the odds as we were talking about it. Joe Lunardi bracketology does not have Ohio State in the tournament. FanDuel, however, has Ohio State right now at plus 35,000 odds to win the championship. Does FanDuel in Vegas know something Joe Lunardi does not?
FanDuel,
or you're going to lose your money real fast.
Or you're going to lose your money real fast tomorrow.
Well, here's the thing. Depending on when some of these were updated, College of Charleston won their conference. They're plus 50,000. I'm pretty sure Oakland won the
I got Charleston
conference
at
they're
35 on
They're
FanDuel.
at plus 50. This is just an overall open. I think you're on live, which is fine. I just was looking at open. But yeah, Ohio State's mentioned on FanDuel, DraftKings, and PointsBet. BetMGM does not have them on the table.
Okay, so maybe it's not Vegas. Maybe it's just FanDuel, DraftKings knows something that we may not
Well,
know.
the other thing is it also depends on who wins the conference championship because Ohio State beat Purdue. If Purdue wins the conference champion, that win becomes better.
Yeah, true. You're not wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, guys. I want to end the show here, just because it's been like a big talk in just sports media recently. Um, Saban has came out verbally about why he, chose, at this point in his career to retire. Coach Prime just did a interview earlier this week with Joel Klatt from Fox Sports, basically talking about their thoughts on the NIL and the collective thing. If you guys haven't seen, I'm sure everybody has seen their comments. Basically, if you have not seen what Coach Prime said to Joel Klatt was NIL is not the issue. The issue is the collectives. That's where he's basically saying that where the issue is the collectives and not the NIL. Um, Coach Prime also said in his statement that he would like to see it more of a performance-based NIL and collective rather than 18-year-old kid, oh, you're the best at your position, come to this school and we'll give you $3 million, right? So I'll open it up. I'm not gonna have a timer here. I'll go ahead and just give my thoughts on it. I think both of them are exactly right. I think what Saban has said very recently about how it's ruining the college football game. Kids are more now concerned about how much money they can make and their playing time instead of working hard to get that playing time or that money. I do agree with Coach Prime when he, saying that it is more of the collective than the NIL, the name, image, likeness aspect of it, where these boosters are just throwing millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars at kids and just making them filthy rich overnight. Because you don't, like he said, you don't even know what this kid's gonna do. Like, and Coach Prime was, and I agree with this aspect of what his, what he said as well was kids are they're chasing the college bag. Coach Prime said, I want these kids to chase that NFL bag. That's where it is. So I agree with all that. I do think if we don't get a tight grip on the NIL and collectives, this could spiral out of control, like as it already has. I mean, we're now on the downward spiral. I mean, I think it could just spiral way more out of control than it already is. We'll start here with Ethan on that, and then we'll go to Drew then Corey on their thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Dion was saying in regards to the future of, I mean, not the future, but what the NIL should be. Uh, you look back in the last 15, 20 years, obviously it's drastically changed. It used to be about being the best in college to get drafted higher, get the money in the NFL. And then, the whole point was to work your way through college, be the best person you can be to get to the NFL and make the money to support your family in future endeavors. Um, and I think it needs to be restructured in a way to push that again. I think the NFL needs to be the end game. I think if the collectives are dumping money at these schools, that it should go into a general pot. I think that these kids that are 18 years old, 19 years old, signing on, um, should basically almost have a contract in their national letter of intent. And when they sign to a school, it should be mentioned that, listen, if you want paid, you have to commit to us for 2, 3 years. You have to show us on the field, in the classroom, that you can be an upstanding student, athletic person, citizen, however you want to put it. And once you hit junior year, senior year, if you've produced, we'll pay you what you're worth. We'll pay you X amount of dollars. We'll let this basically almost like a trust fund, I guess, to an extent, or a bond, a stock and bond for a kid that he shouldn't be allowed to make the money that he's making at 18 years old now until he's proven his worth to my university athletically, academically, community based, until he's an upperclassman. I don't think they should get paid until junior, senior year. Prove your commitment to my school, prove your commitment to our university. Don't just come here because I'm going to give you $7 million as a freshman. Come here knowing you're going to be the best person you could be and get paid down the road.
Absolutely, and that was something that Corey and I always talked about when it first happened, that it shouldn't be for freshmen and sophomores. It should be for the upperclassmen. Go ahead, Drew, with your thoughts here on what they were saying.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Ethan just nailed it. I think the problem is the kids nowadays. Dion said it, they're coming to college to get the bag. They're not coming to develop their skills or anything to reach the ultimate goal. And so that makes me feel like if I'm going to pay these kids to come play for me, how do I know they're going to give 100%? Like, they've already got their money. So we've been saying it for years. The NIL right now was and it still is the wild, wild west. And I understand why Saban would call it quits. I completely agree. They talked about this on the Cover 3 podcast earlier this week, and Danny Cannell brought up a point that maybe this is the fault of the parents of these children, who are kind of instilling the wrong priorities into their children. Like, money should not be the priority over you going to the right school to be developed so that you can go to the NFL. The NFL is the priority. So I agree with you guys. You shouldn't be paying freshmen or sophomores. I would make these kids sign long-term contracts to stay with me at least 2 or 3 years. We need guidelines. We need structure. And then one last thing, I find it kind of funny and a little hypocritical that Nick Saban is now the guy who is calling for parity in college football. It's now that he's retired and he's not invested in it, he's like, okay, now I'll be the face of college football. That's pretty funny. Absolutely.
Corey, your thoughts on Saban and Coach Prime's remarks?
So I'll start with Saban. I agree. We have a big problem. And I do think it is funny that he wants to be the face of college football now as well. I also think that when you looking back on it, something funny to think about is NIL kind of happened so that other teams could catch up and beat Alabama. And when you look back at it, that's something kind of to think about. With Coach Prime, so I'm kind of against NIL. Always have been. So we all went to college. If you were a part of a sports team, you all got free shoes, free shirts, free backpacks, free memorabilia. You got to miss class because you were going on the road to travel to go do stuff. You got special privileges. You don't need money. What do you need money for? You get a free ride. Your parents don't have to pay for you to go to school. You get a free education. You get to potentially have scouts look at you to draft you higher in the NFL. There's no reason for money. Now, with that all being said, to me, NIL should be, oh, okay, you got this shirt, you got this jersey, you got this hat, you got these shoes. If you want to sell that because that's what was given to you, you should be allowed to do that. If you want to sign autographs for the fans and you want to have a booth set up in a clothing store and you charge $25 and that all goes in your pocket, you should be allowed to do that. You shouldn't be allowed, in a sense, there's always been an NIL, regardless of what you want to talk about, right? LeBron was 17 years old and walked to a Hummer dealership and they gave him a free car. Why did they do that? Because as soon as he signed on the dotted line that he was the number 1 overall pick, he said, oh, I got my Hummer and everyone wanted to go buy a Hummer at that place. it's just there's no reason for NIL. What it basically does is you guys always talk about how college football is going down the drain, right? Whatever. All NIL is doing is making the rich richer. It's literally making the better teams that have the money to do it are getting those guys, opposed to when you
Absolutely.
used to have a kid from Indiana would his dream school because his mom or dad went to Indiana. He wanted to go to Indiana regardless of how good or bad their team was. Right?
Yeah.
Now you have guys that say, "Oh yeah, Indiana's in my top 5." But how's Indiana going to compete when the U is offering the dude $4 million a year? There's no reason why a 17 or 18-year-old kid should be rolling up to his college announcement in a Lambo. No excuse, none
I mean,
whatsoever. And the fact that the NCAA has just wants to get on teams about other things in infractions, but then just turns the other way when this money and crap happens. Okay, if a kid is committed to your school, there is no reason why the day before signing day he should be thinking about another school.
absolutely.
And it's one of
It's
those
almost
things where it's
tampering.
like,
It's like
but I mean,
tampering.
like these kids, you say, oh, they don't get paid. Well, I had to pay for my college. I had to pay for my hoodie and all my memorabilia. I had to pay to go do things. These guys walk around campus as big men on campus and go to the bar and people buy them stuff. They get, whatever. Not saying that they don't pay for their own stuff too, but they get free stuff from the university. They get, when you walk in to Ohio State the first day, you're gifted a whole wardrobe of stuff, and you get the LeBron James cleats or the LeBron James shoes or the
Yep.
LeBron James hat. You get all of that stuff, and it all has value to me. So the fact that I get where Prime's coming from, I appreciate Coach Prime, and I think he's phenomenal for college football. And he is definitely someone who knows what he's talking about because he's someone who went through the college experience. He went through the NFL experience. He went through the Major League Baseball experience. And so, like, he's someone that understands it. At the same time, he also wants his son to be the number 1 overall pick and get a bag.
Right.
So, I mean, like, he's a dad at heart, too. So I understand that, but there's no reason why a kid should transfer from Alabama to Ohio State. And as soon as he transfers, he hasn't even been on campus yet. And his evaluation is $1.7 million because of him just what he did last year. There's no reason for that.
I I think that's where Coach Prime's main argument was that it's the collectives that they have, like, like Ohio State has, Michigan, all these schools, like the big name schools have, where they're just flooding money to these kids to get them to come in. And I think that is really now more the issue than NIL. But then also, like Corey was saying, in the NIL, your main issue is these kids are signing endorsement deals. Like, we just saw the Ole Miss quarterback sign an endorsement deal to a private jet company, where he gets to use that private jet pretty much at his
Well,
disposal.
100%.
Like
But
why
on
is but to me, that's just like, why is that's not what NIL was supposed to be. NIL was supposed to be what Reggie Bush got caught for, what Terrell Pryor and the Tattoo 5 at Ohio State got popped for, what Johnny Manziel was getting popped for. You know what I mean? It's like, people gotta understand, like, nobody's saying that these kids shouldn't make money and these schools shouldn't take care of them because of what money they do generate for these programs, right? But at what point do you draw the line in the sand, dude, and say, upon this line, you do not cross? You know? Because
Yeah.
I mean, like Kate Stover. Love Kate Stover, love everything he does. He gets paid by John Deere, not in money value, but he's getting $1 million tractors for his farm. That's great because that's helping, his family business, farming and doing all that stuff here. But why? But why is he allowed to sign that endorsement deal? Shouldn't it be if he wants to, like Corey said, sit down in an autograph signing at a John Deere thing and get paid for that, or John Deere pays Kate Stover because his family uses John Deere tractors. He goes to their office or whatever, signs autographs. He should be able to get paid for his time.
Use him in a commercial.
Yeah.
Give him a John Deere tractor for him appearing in the commercial.
Yeah, that should be it. But you shouldn't be able to sign like an endorsement deal like this kid from Ole Miss did to a private jet company and then say, hey, you can use one of our jets at any time you need to. Don't worry about it.
To me, you have two huge examples of a problem with NIL. Two huge examples, okay? Number one, Quinn Ewers. Number one. A kid who is a junior in high school should not be able to commit to a college and skip his senior year of high school to make millions of dollars. Then, once he cashed in on his millions of dollars, cashed in on even more millions of dollars, to then transfer to another school. That's the first.
To the school he probably would have ended up with anyways as a senior.
The first example. Second example, I would say, is Dylan Raiola. And Dylan Raiola, how many schools has he been committed to? 3, 4, 5, whatever. And then he ended up at Nebraska, not only because he cashed in on the bag, but because Nebraska cashed his dad in on the bag too by putting him on the coaching staff.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, and you getting a coach to do that for a recruit, to me, is not an issue. I have no worries or no issues about that. And teams have been doing that for a long time. But to me, and then I have one more example. The biggest example of them all, Marvin Harrison Jr. He was good enough to go pro last year, 2 years ago, okay? He was good enough to go pro. Why after his junior year, you can say, oh, yeah, he wants to beat Michigan. Yeah, he wants to beat and win a Big Ten title, and he wants to play for a national title. But there is no reason why he should be offered more money in college than he would get as being a top 5 NFL draft pick. That's a problem.
And I think
and playing on that.
Go ahead, Ethan.
I'll say, and playing on that, you have to think that if this continues, the NFL has to step in, because broad hypothetical picture, their product is going to completely decrease in value down the road if these athletes are as sporadic, non-committal. If you're giving me $3 million, the short-term versus the long-term gain is astronomical right now because everybody wants what they want and they want it now.
They're going to take the ban off. Freshmen and sophomores are going to be able to declare.
I don't think they will. Strictly because of I don't think they can because of the strict science behind why the NFL implemented that rule to begin with, and the science behind it was your body at 18, 19, and 20 years old is not developed enough, and your brain and your body, like the human brain isn't fully developed until you are 25 years old. Like your skull isn't fully developed until you're 25 years old, right? So they said, if I remember correctly from the article I read years ago when that was all being discussed back with the one and done with basketball, was since football is such a contact sport, the science and the medicals and all that say that you need to be at least 21, 22 to go into the NFL, because your body is not developed enough to be able to handle the type of punishment that you get in the NFL.
But you still have guys that are younger than that in the NFL.
No, you don't. You don't have guys that are younger than 21 in the NFL. It's very you may, but it's very.
You do.
If they're 20 when they sign their contract, they're 21 by the time the season starts.
Money talks, and when the NFL goes up in value and ups their money because of it, you're going to get kids that are freshmen and sophomores who feel they're good enough to go, and there are freshmen and sophomores that are good enough to go to be in the NFL.
Hey,
and to be fair,
Maurice Claret fought the NFL and lost.
he also stole a radio out of some guy's car and a
I
bunch
mean,
of
that
other
was way
things.
after. That was
So,
after.
but I
But I'm
mean,
just saying,
but I'm saying he had every opportunity and right, but also college football was a lot different back then than it is right now.
you're not wrong. Drew, I'm gonna get your thoughts on this. Like what playing off what Ethan and Corey were originally saying. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the ultimate play that the NFL has to deter kids from staying in, or whatever, is they need to up their rookie salaries. Because right now it's all a pay scale because of what,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't remember when it was implemented. I want to say it was the Eli Manning draft, where Eli got drafted, then went to got traded draft day to the Giants because he wasn't going to play in Los Angeles or
Because
for
he's a
the Charger.
crybaby.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
his dad was doing.
Up
Um,
to 2009, Stafford got the bags and Bradford got the bags. So they
yes.
changed to
So it was right around those draft classes.
2010.
Yeah, it was right
I
around
mean,
those
Patrick Mahomes got the bag.
but that's
At the
after,
draft.
not at the where I'm talking
Yeah.
draft day contracts, Corey, was they used to be
Oh,
ridiculous. You know what I mean?
I understand, but I
So
mean, they're
I
gonna
think
have to go back to that.
I think the NFL hasn't adjusted accordingly, throughout the year since that rule was made to now, where they need to adjust that accordingly and say, okay, well, we need to make it at least worth some of these guys coming into the NFL, right? Instead of, like Corey was saying, a Marvin Harrison Jr. can make more money his senior year in college playing for Ohio State than he does his rookie year in the NFL. And I think that's kind of an issue too.
Yeah, but the NFL can just know that they can wait because a kid, if he wants to go back to school, he's going to have to leave the following year anyway. So the NFL can just be the NFL. That's the other side of it.
I think that Ethan's got a point. I think the NFL in a couple of years, like obviously, if I'm making $2 million in college, why would I go to the NFL when I can just party in college? So I think there will be an issue with draft classes becoming less good, kind of like what's going on in the NBA right now. Like this year's NBA draft class is dog shit, and that's because a lot of guys are like staying in school because they can make more money than being a second round draft pick. So I think, and the NFL is the most profitable pro league in the world, or something like that, at least in America. So obviously they can raise
It is the
rookie
most
minimums.
profitable.
So I think eventually that's what's going to have to happen because, like I said, I would stay in school, dude. College is fun as hell. Why would I want to go to the NFL right now and get beat to death every day?
I think both of those things are true. I think they're going to have to raise the rookie minimum, and I think they have to put a cap on how much you can make as a player in college. Whether that's 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, you don't need that much money when you're doing that.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with all that money in college?
Blow it.
That's exactly what
you're not going to invest. Yeah, you're not going to do it for the greater good. You're just going to have it to blow it.
And
they're gonna buy a nice car. They're gonna buy their parents a house. They're gonna buy those finer things, and then they're gonna buy Rolexes and
not always
go out and drink their paycheck away.
Yep. Throw huge parties.
And I
not
also
all those
think
kids come from the bottom either. There's rich kids getting rich NIL deals that don't need the money.
And that's Corey or Ethan. That was going to be my next. What I was going to say too, playing off of that was what for like a kid like Marvin Harrison Jr. Your dad is a Hall of Famer in the NFL, like Shador Sanders and Coach Prime. Your dad is a Hall of Famer. Your dad was a two-sport athlete, made buku money. Why, like for like collective purposes? I think the collective should go to the kids who really don't have that never had that upbringing or that opportunity growing up, because like what is at what point, like for Marv or Shador Sanders, is $1 million, $2 million to play college football worth when your dad can sit there and go out and buy you that Lamborghini or that Rolls Royce or whatever car you want, whatever Rolex you want, whatever you want, your parent could already get that for you.
It definitely goes back to the Shaq thing. That's the
Yeah.
greatest line in all of sports
Yeah,
parenting.
Shaq.
I'm rich, you're not rich. We're not rich, I'm rich.
Yep.
So you got to earn your own, develop your own, become a good financial planner on your own. You're not using my money to make yourself who
Right,
you
but
are.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, but we know how like some of that stuff goes. Like when you turn 16 or 18, your parents go out and buy you a car, right? Like some of these guys, their parents buy them a car. A lot of us, I know the three of us, we got hand-me-down cars from our parents. You know, like our parents got a new car when we turned that age, and they said, "Okay, here, you can have my old one. I'm not gonna go out and buy you a new car. This one runs fine." Corey, I know you drove your dad's van for how long?
I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, every parent is different. So, like,
right.
if parents want to spend money and buy their kid a car, you can't stop that.
Right.
But also, like, at least where I went to school, when you were a freshman, if you wanted a parking spot in a garage, you got the last pick after everybody else was done, and yours, it was like double the price. So they didn't want you to have a car on it. Now, if your parents are rich, they're going to pay that anyway, and you're going to be able to do whatever you want. But, I mean, so what? If you're the star quarterback of the football team that just won a national title, they're not going to give a crap about what you do.
Right. I mean, it's my own personal experience in college, my freshman year with having a car on campus at Toledo. My car wasn't even on our campus, like our main campus. We had like a secondary. I forget what the name of the campus was, but it was basically just like another building that we had to go take classes at, that I had to get on a bus, like a school bus, to take to this campus that was like 5 miles away to get into the freshman parking lot. You know, Drew, I'm pretty sure BG was almost the same for freshmen. Like your freshman parking lot wasn't even on campus; it was like down the street. You know, like a couple miles away, and it was like, if you want to get your car, you can have it. Yeah, it was a hell of a trek to even get there. I remember taking you to your parking spot there, and it was like, where am I going? You know, I'm making a left here, right here, and next thing you know, we're in a cornfield. You know, but so I think ultimately, I think we all agree that this needs to be honed in on. There needs to be some restrictions. There needs to probably be a cap put on, like a salary cap that each team could spend. Or, you know, each program, like your football program has a salary cap, your basketball program has a salary cap, and all of that. I think we're all in agreement that that needs to be a thing going forward. The only other question is, and we'll get to this next episode, so I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger, is what is the NCAA going to do about it? Will the NCAA even be around to do something about it in the future? So we're going to end the show on that note. Guys, I do appreciate your time here this Saturday afternoon. Great conversation as always. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Take it easy, and we'll see you guys next week.